What is it about the Navajo language that made it perfect for Navajo code talking?
Well, initially, back in January of 1942, when Philip Johnston made the suggestion to the United States Marine Corps, San Diego, Philip Johnston was not a Navajo. His parents came to Navajo Nation late 1800 as missionaries to Navajos. So Philip John was a little boy at that time, late 1800s. So he grew up on a reservation, Philip Johnson. He learned the language, he learned the culture. He also served in the United States Army, World War I, overseas in Europe, United States Army Communication Unit. So he knows something about communication. He knows Navajo, he knows the language, he also knows military communication by serving in World War I. So he's the one that made the suggestion of using Navajo language. Now, after that became a discussion between the Commandant of the United States Marine Corps, Defense Department, the Bureau of Indian Affairs, Department of Interior, other tribes were suggested. Why not use Cherokees, or why not use Apaches, why not use the Sioux? Different tribes were suggested. Why not use these? Well, in final analysis, it was decided Navajo Nation was very isolated from all these other different tribes, number one. Number two, there was a lot of us still. The largest Indian tribe in America was Navajo at that time. So if there's any casualties, there's going to be enough replacements so the code continues. The last thing was that no more than maybe 2 or 3 persons outside Navajo Nation knows the language. No one else. So it's very safe and secure, the Navajo language itself. Thirdly, pronunciation of quite a few Navajo words. This is coming from the anthropologists that are very difficult to pronounce. Some words sound the same as another word with a small inflection of the tongue or the girdle. It could mean different things. So Navajo was chosen.
Many credit the Navajo code talkers for the success of the war. How does that make you feel?
Well, we didn't know any of this stuff until after 1968. All we knew all these times is that we were just one of the war units. There are people operating artillery. There are people operating tanks. There are Marine using machine guns, motor units. We were communication unit. We were using radio. So we all doing our part. We didn't know the effectiveness of all of these things, but we know together we were doing things. We were winning the war, but we didn't know how significant Navajo code was until after 1968. Why 1968? Because in 1945 and 46 they told us, don't tell anyone what you did, because what you did is still top secret. You wait until the Navajo code is declassified. In the meantime, if someone asks you what you did in war, like at home, your friends, just tell them you're a radio man, that's all, nothing more. Sure enough, we got home, got discharged. Our friends and relatives say, hey, what did you do in war, you know? Our response, oh, nothing, I was just a radio man don't ask me any more questions. Waited. We were radio men for 23 years after the war. It was not until 1968 when we saw on television newspaper that Navajo code was declassified. At that point, people began to ask, what's this? What's Navajo code? So we all got back together and said, oh, that's us. We're Navajo code talkers. We need to organize like VFW. You know, they got nice VFW uniform with a nice blue cap. Let's organize. So we did. In 1969, over 400 of us served as officially designated as Navajo code talkers. And over a dozen were killed in action. Most of those that were killed in action were assigned to land with the first wave. Every landing, they always assign at least a dozen Navajo code talkers to land with the first wave, the first ones to hit the beach. Why? Because the commander, wants to know immediately after you hit the beach what the casualty rate is on the beach. You don't want the enemy to know that. So it's Navajo code talkers' responsibility to send that kind of messages back to the command ship, what the casualty rate is on the beach. Also, the command ship wants to know, as soon as you hit the beach, they tell us, as soon as the gate goes down, run like hell, hit the deck, and start looking where the enemy fire is coming from. They give us code talkers map of the island with grid lines. We memorize those. So after the first wave hits the beach, you run like hell, hit the deck, you begin to see where these enemy fires are coming from. You look at your map, locate the location by grid lines, send that location back to the command ship in Navajo code. They then, at Navajo, then the commander, either general or the admiral, assigns either Marine Air Wing or a cruiser or battleship to zero in on their particular gun emplacement, all in Navajo code. You don't want the enemy to know, because enemies breaking code, if you did it in English, they learned that they're being targeted, so they move their location. So by the time you get there to knock them out, they're not there anymore. So it's very important that those kind of situation is all done in Navajo. Message coming in, message going out, ordering destruction of that particular gun emplacement. They also, the first wave code talkers, were assigned to regarding our ammunition situation. All we land with is what we have in our rifle and what we have in our belt. Maybe just 4 or 5 hand grenades. They don't last long. And about a third or fourth wave, ammunition ships supposed to come in, dump more ammunition on the beach. Sometimes they get blown up before they hit the beach. So he's sitting there with little or no ammunition. You don't want the enemy to know that either. So that kind of information sent back to the command ship in Navajo code. They then ordered more ships with ammunition to come in, all in Navajo. So the enemy never knew what in the world was going on. Also, troop movements on the beach, formations, all of those in Navajo code. So I don't know whether this regiment or this battalion is going to move to Red Beach or Yellow Beach. It's all, nothing the enemy knew. Everything was top secret. That's why we learned much, much later how important Navajo code was.